Elaine Miller, the title of her speech, Are You Ready? Are you ready? Elaine Miller.
Mr. Toastmaster, esteemed judges, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? If you think you are, stand up. All right, everybody stand up. Even if you don't think you're ready, stand up. All right, if you were born before 1940, sit down. If you were born before 1950, sit down. Before 1960, sit down. Before 1970, sit down. Okay, those of you who are standing were born 1980 or after. But my talk to you today, you may see. Be seated, thank you. My talk today is relative to everyone in this room, but most particularly, if you were one of the last few people standing, listen carefully to what I have to say to you today. Those of us who were born in the 1940s and the 1950s probably remember. How many of you actually remember bomb drills in school? Bomb drills. How about fire drills? Did you ever have a fire drill? Yes! Well, has anybody here ever been in an area that was being bombed? Yes, a few have. Have you ever been evacuated from a burning building? A few have. For the rest of us, was it just a waste of time? No. I say it was not a waste of time, because we were being prepared for what if. And I'm saying to you today that I think particularly the younger people in the group are probably not very well prepared for the unknown, the eventuality, the disaster, because they've always lived with convenience. They've always had electricity, they've always had hot and cold running water, they've always had all the modern conveniences. How many of you have ever lived for a week or longer with no electricity? A few have. I have. As a matter of fact, I was born in a small farm, on a small farm in Iowa, and our house didn't have electricity. No power. So we lived with kerosene lights, we had a wood cook stove, we heated with wood or coal, and we had a pump, and we had the little house out back. For the uninitiated, that's the outdoor privy. I also lived for 10 years on a Caribbean island, and there we only had electricity if we turned on our own diesel-powered generator. So, are you ready? Well, I can tell you, last Friday night, I met a friend for dinner and the movies, and we ended up the evening at Midnight Rodeo dancing. I drove home. I pushed the button on the console in my car to open my garage door. Nothing happened. Pushed it again. Nothing. Well, dang. I got out and I manually pushed the key pad, but the door didn't budge. I was not ready. I had driven home in a big thunderstorm. I wasn't ready for this. It was 1 a.m. and I was a little happy. And I couldn't get in my house. That didn't make me happy. So I couldn't figure this out. Let's see now, what am I going to do? You know, in the 16 years I've lived in that house, I have never carried a house key. Never needed it. How am I going to get in? Well, I checked all 4 doors, and sure enough, they were locked tight. I did my job. I put the steel bar in the door, and I set the alarm before I left. Well, now what? If I break a window, I'll wake up all the neighbors because my alarm will go off and the police will come and I'll be embarrassed and I might have to pay a fine. Oh, I know. I'll just drive to the police station and get them to help me. So, 5 minutes away, I'm at the police station. But guess what? In a small town, the police lock the door and turn out the lights and go home at night. But it did say, in case of emergency, dial 911. And it said, non-emergencies, dial the number listed. So I pull out my cell phone and I dial the number listed. They answer. I explain. They say, we'll have a police cruiser there in about 5 minutes or so. Up drives a police cruiser. I tell the story to my policeman. He says, no problem, I'll follow you to your house. We'll get in. Okay, so we get there. He checks all the doors and windows again. It's still raining, and he's sloshing around there. Yep, it's locked up tight. Never fear, he says, and he pulls out his burglar tools. He's got a fine lock-picking set. He goes to the first door, and he fiddles, and he fiddles, and he fiddles. I'm watching to see if he can do it. Nothing happens. He goes to the next door, he fiddles, nothing happens. He calls for backup. He had bragged in advance, I can get into any house in 5 or 10 minutes. 30 minutes later, the backup comes and he's still fiddling around and the backup tries. No, it won't happen. They can't get in. So now we're back to discussing all about breaking the windows. I said, wait a minute, I have one more idea. Now I'm not going to tell you what it is because even the walls have ears. But 20 minutes later, hallelujah, I was in the house. I dried off my cat, dried off my dog, dried myself, crawled into bed at 2:30 a.m. I was not ready for that kind of an evening. So I'm telling you that if you're young and you have young children, I say the young people are more vulnerable because they probably have children that they're responsible for. They maybe have never thought about what life is like when you have to take care of an emergency. So I'm saying today, make a plan. Have a fire escape route. Have something arranged for your children, a designated person to raise them if you should happen to perish unexpectedly. Make a plan. Have some cash available. Have an emergency plan. So the next time someone says to you, are you ready?